The Indiana Fever made several offseason moves in the last few weeks, but Caitlin Clark has remained fairly quiet. The Fever signed Dewanna Bonner, a six-time All-Star and two-time WNBA champion, and Natasha Howard, a two-time All-Star and three-time champion. The two signed one-year deals worth at least $200,000, slightly below the maximum salary of about $250,000, which is what the Fever paid to re-sign guard Kelsey Mitchell, Clark's backcourt partner. But at Monday's introductory press conference for Bonner, Clark finally gave her thoughts on the franchise's offseason moves. And they were overwhelmingly positive. "We didn't really have much experience at all playing in playoff games last year," Clark said. "Adding pieces, players that have been in this league. They know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to get to the finals. They know what it takes to win championships. I think it's exactly what we needed in our locker room." Bonner and Howard have played 140 playoff games combined. Before the Fever were swept by Bonner and the Connecticut Sun in the first round last year, their entire roster combined for just 19 total playoff games. The 37-year-old Bonner, who played her last two seasons with the Sun under new Fever coach Stephanie White, gave a stamp of approval to the Fever's young core, which consists of Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull, by saying she still wants to win another championship. Indiana's offseason work also included announcing plans for a $78 million training center in downtown Indianapolis that will open in 2027, the final year of Clark's rookie deal that pays her an average salary of $84,517 per year. Clark heaped praise on Pacers Sports and Entertainment, the owner of the Fever and the NBA's Pacers, for its willingness to invest in a franchise despite being in a relatively small market. "This is the franchise in all of women's sports, I say, no matter what sport it is. I think the next few years are going to be amazing for this franchise, and will continue to be for hopefully 10-plus years, and hopefully we win a few championships," Clark said. The Indiana Fever have been one of the most active teams in WNBA free agency this offseason, as they look to bolster their roster ahead of the season beginning in just a couple of months. The Fever reached the postseason for the first time since 2016 last season, led by superstar Caitlin Clark. Now with a new head coach in Stephanie White, the team's aggressiveness in adding veteran talent around Clark has been noticeable, and their biggest move this offseason came when they agreed to a deal with former Phoenix Mercury and Connecticut Sun star Dewanna Bonner. Bonner is a six-time All-Star, two-time WNBA champion, and is two-time All-WNBA talent that was spotted at the Indiana Pacers game on Tuesday, alongside Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull, who will all have pivotal roles in the upcoming season. Bonner, entering her 16th WNBA season, has spent a decade with the Mercury and 5 years with the Sun. Throughout her illustrious career, she has averaged 14.9 points, 6.1 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1.2 steals per game. Now she'll aim to bring her experience and leadership to the Fever, a team that entered free agency with one of the youngest rosters in the league. With the addition of Bonner, along with Sydney Colson, Natasha Howard, Jaylen Brown, and Sophie Cunningham, the Fever now have a balanced mix of youth and experience. Clark remains the centerpiece of the Indiana Fever and is entering her second season, while Aaliyah Boston enters her third. The team also re-signed Kelsey Mitchell, who tied Clark for the team high in points last season, averaging 19.2 per game. Clark had a glowing endorsement for all of the Fever's additions this offseason following Bonner's introductory press conference. "They know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to get to the finals. They know what it takes to win championships," Clark said. "I think it's exactly what we needed in our locker room. But also, they're not just really good basketball players. They're great leaders and great people, and I know the front office prioritized that." Caitlin Clark stayed relatively quiet as the Indiana Fever embarked on a major offseason overhaul. Stephanie White took over as coach. Amber Cox became general manager. The construction of a new practice facility was announced. And then the franchise brought in WNBA champs Dewanna Bonner and Natasha Howard. The team welcomed Bonner on Monday, and Clark was there to give a ringing endorsement of the offseason moves. "They know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to get to the finals. They know what it takes to win championships," Clark said, referring to the newcomers. "I think it's exactly what we needed in our locker room. But also, they're not just really good basketball players. They're great leaders and great people, and I know the front office prioritized that." Make no mistake, Clark still runs this team on the court. In a historic season that featured the league's Rookie of the Year breaking the WNBA's single-season mark for assists, Playing routinely in front of sellout crowds and drawing record television ratings, the former Iowa star played a pivotal role in helping the Fever snap a 7-year postseason drought while also bringing the franchise back to national prominence. And with all-star shooting guard Kelsey Mitchell and all-star forward Aaliyah Boston, the 2023 Rookie of the Year, both back next season, Clark thinks the Fever could take another gigantic leap forward in 2025 and believes the newcomers see it too. "This is the franchise of all women's sports, I say, no matter what sport it is," she said. "They see the type of crowds we get, the excitement we're generating not only in Indiana but all across the country. I think the next few years are going to be amazing for this franchise and will continue to be for hopefully the next 10 years. Hopefully we win a few championships. The fact is, Indiana has largely filled one glaring omission from last year: postseason experience. Last week, the Fever reintroduced Howard, a 2-time All-Star and 3-time league champ, to the franchise that initially drafted the forward number 5 overall in 2014. Clark then attended the event, and though she wasn't scheduled to speak, did anyway. "I think it will be a lot of fun to get in the gym and be with my teammates and just start putting the pieces together and see what works or what doesn't," Clark said. "But I think we're going to have a lot of different options to do a lot of different things. I think that's what's super exciting." Bonner, meanwhile, will wear number 25 instead of her traditional number 24, because that number has been retired by the Fever in honor of Hall of Famer Tamika Catchings. Now Bonner can focus on teaming up with Clark and Boston on the court while helping mentor them into championship players in the locker room. Clark and Bonner did cross paths in one notable exchange last year when they were involved in a brief scuffle during the second and final game of a playoff series. "I think it was just two competitive players who wanted to win and push their teams to get to the finish line," Bonner said. "It's the playoffs, so emotions are high, tensions are high, but I'm excited to step on the court with Caitlin. I think we just feed well off of each other. That's certainly the plan as Indiana continues to fine-tune its roster." Team officials also announced last week that they had signed free agent guard Sydney Colson, a 2-time league champ, and acquired guard Sophie Cunningham from Phoenix in a 4-team deal that cost Indiana starting forward Nalissa Smith. Indiana also waived former draft picks Grace Berger and Victoria Saxton, and team officials announced they and forward Katie Lou Samuelson mutually agreed to part ways. White, Cox, and president of basketball and business operations, Kelly Krauskopf, haven't said yet whether they're finished making moves before the WNBA draft in April. Even if they don't, Clark and Bonner each believe this version of the Fever can contend for a title, and that's why the free agents joined the Fever. "A dynamic point guard can put you in position to score easily, and I think playing with Kelsey and AB, Boston, it's just going to be easy to score," Bonner said before talking about the crowd at the news conference. "I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I've ever been in front of this many media people. Hopefully, I can put out the product everyone deserves here." After spending 3 seasons with the Las Vegas Aces, Sydney Colson is taking her talents to Indiana Fever. And honestly, this couldn't have been a better move for Indiana. They needed a solid backup point guard for Caitlin Clark, and well, they just landed a 2-time WNBA champion to fill that role. But while Indiana's front office is pumped about the addition, what does Colson herself think? Well, in classic Sydney Colson fashion, she took to Twitter with a hilarious response. "Y'all saying I got traded so much that I'm starting to believe it." Yes, that's how she addressed the news. No grand statements, no emotional tributes, just Pete Colson energy. However, earlier the former Aces star did express how thrilled she is. "I am very excited for this new opportunity with Indiana. I know several players and coaches from the Fever, and I trust what I know about them," she said. And she's bringing a wealth of experience to the table. The 6-time playoff vet was part of the Aces' back-to-back title runs. Over her career, she's averaged just 2.8 points and 1.6 assists. But her reliable shooting from the field, 40.4%, and three-point shooting, 37.8% last season, tough defense, and most importantly, a 10-year vet who's played for 5 different teams makes her an asset for the team. So it's no surprise that Indiana's front office is thrilled. General Manager Amber Cox couldn't have put it better. "Sydney is a proven veteran. She brings a championship pedigree to the Fever, adding depth to our point guard position. We have the utmost confidence in her ability to step into any situation and deliver on both ends of the floor," she said. But Colson isn't the only major addition. They've already signed two championship-winning forwards, Natasha Howard and Dewanna Bonner, and pulled off a trade for sharpshooter Sophie Cunningham. The Fever already had a solid core with Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, the last two WNBA Rookies of the Year, and Kelsey Mitchell. Not to forget, this is the same squad that broke a 7-year playoff drought last season. So, with these additions, it's only natural that Indiana is looking like a serious title contender. And Cece couldn't be happier about it. Caitlin Clark was front and center at yet another big Indiana Fever moment. This time, Dewanna Bonner's introductory press conference. Sitting in the front row, she nodded along as Bonner answered questions and even laughed when their little on-court playoff spat was brought up. After the presser, the 23-year-old took her turn with the media, and she's absolutely hyped about what's brewing in Indiana. Clark couldn't help but praise Fever's front office, saying they've done a solid job of building a team that just makes sense. I think Kelly and Amber have done a really good job of finding pieces that fit, and it makes me excited about the future, she said. But it's not just about adding talent, it's about adding the right kind of talent. Clark pointed out that last year, the Fever's lack of playoff experience was glaring. We didn't really have much experience at all playing in playoff games. We really lacked in that area, she admitted. Now that's no longer a problem. With Bonner, Howard, Colson, and Cunningham, Indiana has players who've been in the trenches, battled in the finals, and know exactly what it takes to win. The 2024 roadie loves the leadership and chemistry these new additions bring. So, with all these positive vibes floating around in Indiana, the only thing left is to see how this premium roster delivers when they hit the court.